I'm Laura London, and this is a special video edition of Speaking of Jung. Joining us today for episode 110 is clinical psychologist, translator, and Jungian analyst candidate in training, Shinichiro Otsuka in Kobe, Japan. He graduated from Keio University in Tokyo with the Faculty of Letters in 2002 and went on to graduate school to study clinical psychology with prominent Jungian analyst Dr. Hiroshi Yokoyama. After completing the doctoral program at Konan University's Graduate School of Humanities in 2009, Dr. Otsuka worked as a clinical psychologist at a psychiatric clinic, engaging in psychotherapy and counseling. In 2016, he applied for the official training program to become a Jungian analyst. For 2 years, he studied Jungian psychology at the International School for Analytical Psychology, known as ISAP Zurich in Switzerland. After passing the propaedeuticum, he returned to Japan and started a private practice in Kobe, specializing in Jungian-oriented psychotherapy alongside his diploma candidacy with the Association of Jungian Analysts in Japan. His qualification is expected in 2023. In addition to his clinical work, Dr. Otsuka has translated several books into Japanese, including Jung's Dream Analysis, The Practice of Psychotherapy, and Introduction to Jungian Psychology, as well as Otto Rank's The Trauma of Birth and Sandor Ferenc's First Contributions to Psychoanalysis. Today, his Japanese translation of the book Map of the Soul 7, Persona, Shadow, and Ego in the World of BTS is being released in Japan by Sogensha. The book is the 4th volume in the Map of the Soul series published by Chiron. It includes text from the first 3 volumes, one each on persona, shadow, and ego, written by the author of Jung's Map of the Soul, Dr. Murray Stein, along with Chiron publishers Dr. Stephen Buser and Dr. Leonard Cruz. You can listen to our episodes with Dr. Stein about BTS by visiting the special BTS page on our website, speakingofjung.com. On that page, you'll find links to episodes on Map of the Soul Persona, the Shadow, the Ego, Map of the Soul 7, their Japanese album Map of the Soul The Journey, B, their speech at the United Nations, and an episode on Jung's model of typology and psychological types. This video interview is being recorded on Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, through the magic of StreamYard. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Otsuka. I was pronouncing your name incorrectly this entire time, so I apologize for struggling.
You are pronouncing my name very good. Quite
Oh,
natural.
thank you. Thank you. I'm going to try not to say it too often, but it is Otsuka.
Yes, that's it. And I'm so happy to be here because I am a huge fan of your program. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So you are the, quote, Japanese student that Dr. Murray Stein referred to in our first episode about BTS back in 2019. That was episode 42. When I asked Dr. Stein how he found out that his book, Jung's Map of the Soul, which is a classic in the field, was being sold by Big Hit Music. You are that Japanese student. So tell us a little bit about how you found out about it and then told Dr. Stein.
Yeah, that was me. I was that Japanese student, actually. And it was my wife who first found out that the Korean translation of Jung's Map of the Soul is recommended on the official website of BTS. And so one morning, she said, "Hey, do you know the Jungian book is available on the official website of BTS? You know something about it?" And I said, hey, wait, what's that BTS? I don't know, because I have no knowledge about BTS yet. And actually, she was a fan. He was the army of BTS at that time.
Your wife was army?
Yes.
Is
Yes,
army?
exactly. Yes.
Oh, great.
So she knew many things about BTS, and so I went to see that official website and actually found that one Jungian book is recommended there, and with the aid of automatic translation, I found that the book was Dr. Mary Stein's masterpiece, Jung's Map of the Soul and Introduction, and I was really surprised and pleased. So, and at that time, I was studying at ISAP, International School of Analytical Psychology in Zurich, an institution to train Jungian analysts in Switzerland. And as a part of training program, I used to see Dr. Stein very frequently at that time. So one morning I went to see him and said, do you know your book is recommended on the website of a Korean pop group called BTS? Do you know something about it? And he said, what is that BTS? Just like me, we had no knowledge about BTS.
Same with me. And I just want to know, when was that? What year was that?
It was around the Christmas season at 2018, I believe.
Okay. The end of 2018.
Yeah, end of 2018. And I also told him not only Jung's Map of the Soul, but also the Demian by Hermann Hesse, and also The Art of Loving by psychoanalyst Erich Neumann. Erich Fromm. Were also recommended on the very same website too. So, and Dr. Stein was seemed to impressed with it, because he said that these three books, including his own, have a common character, which is emphasizing the importance of the meaning of being matured, the boy becoming adulthood. So
the boy becoming an adult.
Yeah, exactly. So that's very interesting, he said. And he also said, it is wonderful that such a pop group, quite popular amongst the younger generation, is recommending that those kind of books with deep themes, like deep psychological themes. Like that.
Deep psychological themes, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was it. And we were just enjoyed that this news coming from my wife. And so we had no expectation about what would happen after that.
So the reason why that book kind of caught your eye when you translated the title from the Korean, because Big Hit Music was selling the Korean edition.
Yeah.
The reason why it caught your eye is because you said that book, quote, changed my life.
Yes, exactly.
Tell us how.
Well, I first became interested in Jungian psychology when I was a teenager, maybe 18 or 19 years old, when I was a college student. And I was studying anthropology at university, but I became more interested in psychology, especially clinical psychology, rather than anthropology. And one day I happened to find a book, a Jungian book, at the library of that university. And I was fascinated with it. And I almost decided to become a Jungian analyst by myself because that book impressed me so deeply. And the book was Jung's Map of the Cell, written by Dr. Stein. So yeah, that's the reason why I called it the book which changed my way of life.
Yeah, it changed the course of your life. So instead of studying anthropology, you decided to study psychology. And I'm very interested in, every time I have an analyst on this program who is also a clinical psychologist, I'm very, very interested in why you would study clinical psychology, practice clinical psychology, which is not an easy thing to do. And when I was a psychology major in college, they would ask us, well, do you want to go to the clinical side or do you want to go to the social side or the experimental side? And I went experimental because I had a science background too. But I can only imagine how difficult it is to train as a clinical psychologist and then practice as one. And so my question is, how and why did you, as a clinical psychologist, then decide to undergo additional training, which you're still undergoing, to become a Jungian analyst? Why wasn't, right? So why wasn't practicing as a clinical psychologist where you wanted to stay? Why did you want to then become an analyst?
Yeah, that's a very big question and maybe difficult to answer, but I try. And there are many fields of about the activities of clinical psychologists in Japan. Not only the psychotherapy, psychological test, community work, or the preventional activities. So there are lots of things to do for clinical psychologists in Japan, especially after the national license has been established finally a couple of years ago. We became more official than before. Now we are national licensed psychologists.
Okay.
But I needed to realize that my interest is rooted deeply in the field of psychotherapy, personal psychotherapy, one-to-one, face-to-face. And as I said, the very first motivation to be interested in clinical psychology was a Jungian psychology book for me. So Jungian psychology, the analytical psychology, has been always at the heart of my interest ever since I became a clinical psychologist. So it was quite natural for me to decide to start the specialized training training to become a Jungian analyst when I get ready. And I got ready when I was 35 or 36. So
and did you seek out Dr. Stein in Zurich because of his book?
Yes, exactly. I had two options. I can go to I could go to ISAP or Jung Institute at Kielsnacht.
Right.
But the reason why I chose ISEP was that Dr. Stein, who was working as a training and supervising analyst at ISEP. So, yeah, that's the reason why I chose ISEP.
And it was shortly after that you discovered that BTS's management company was selling his book on their website. And that was at the end of 2018, like we said. And then at the beginning of 2019, we all learned that their next album was going to be titled Map of the Soul Persona. So tell us what the story of you learning about that and then talking about that with Dr. Stein when we first found out it was going to be titled that.
Yes, yes. Actually, I appeared again in this story, and I am a Twitter user. And through my Twitter account, one army, I guess, is a very enthusiastic army in Japan, told me that the BTS will release the new album titled Map of the Soul Persona. And I was surprised, of course. And of course, I was also very excited to tell him. I guess it was the next day, actually. On the next day, I went to see Dr. Stein, told him, the BTS. That BTS will release the album called Map of the Soul Persona. And this time, he was more surprised than the first time. Well, I believe he said something like this: "Wow, that's great." So after that, Dr. Stein and I became more and more interested in BTS and started to study their former activities, music, films. So, that's how we became more interested in BTS.
Well, tell us, you're in Japan, I'm here in the United States, and tell us what the influence of BTS is in Japan. I mean, how well known are they? How big are they? Obviously, they've grown since then, because that was 3 years ago. We're talking about what happened 3 years ago when Map of the Soul Persona came out.
Well, I can say that at least BTS is one of the most popular music group, even in Japan. And there are plenty of armies in Japan, and I believe they have an original organization in Japan. Fans organization in Japan.
An army, Japan Army. Japanese Army. And BTS, most of their lyrics are in Korean. They're starting to have more and more English lyrics, but they also record songs in Japanese, and they have Japanese versions of some of their popular songs.
Yeah, I see. But I believe that Japanese fans are enjoying the song and the original Korean language, the English language too, because because it is music. Music can go beyond their national understanding. Language. So it is quite natural for the Japanese army to enjoy the Korean or English song. So it's okay for them.
And BTS has visited Japan many times.
Many times.
Done many concerts there. So they have a big presence in Japan. And I was wondering if you would make any comments on their presence, the presence of K-pop in Japan from a psychological perspective. If you would say a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I am not a historian or the scholar of sociology or the politics, so I can't say something political or social matters happening between Korea and Japan. But I need to say that there is increasingly bad mood or bad relationship between Korea and Japan, mostly based on the political or the historical or economic matters. And so maybe I should say it is the worst moment, worst era ever since the World War II ended. So it's not an easy time for both of us, Korea and Japan. But still, as you said, the K-pop is quite popular in Japan too, including my wife.
Yeah.
And also, for example, my mother is a huge fan of Korean TV programs, TV dramas.
Yeah.
She knows nothing about the history, the political matters about Korea, but she can enjoy it very much. So what I want to say is that the culture, including the music, BTS, can be the bridge between two countries, and this bridge is so valuable for both of us.
Music as a bridge between the two countries, yeah. And going back to the lyrics, now that they're releasing songs in English, and I only speak English fluently, I'm actually realizing that I prefer their songs in Korean. They feel more authentic. That sometimes I don't know what they're saying, but when I do bother to translate the lyrics, I'm floored at the depth of their lyrics. And so I would love it if you would share with us your experience of BTS's lyrics before I know we need to talk about the book, and you can weave that in because I've gotten a lot of pushback from listeners, not all, but a fair number of listeners who are not understanding the connection between BTS and Jung, and saying that it's just a superficial relationship, and it's not at all. And I love what you wrote in the translators afterword to this book, which we'll talk about, where you explain how you don't see it that way. And I'd like for you to share with our listeners, you as a clinical psychologist and a Jungian analyst in training, there in Japan, how you see this connection between BTS, or I should say, the incorporation of Jung's ideas in BTS's music.
Well, I'd like to say that my favorite song in The Map of the South 7 is Interlude Shadow. Yes, I love the whole album, of course, but I love it especially because it is a brilliant expression and understanding or incorporation, as you said, of Jungian idea, the concepts of shadow. It is not so difficult to understand what shadow means. It's something you don't reap. That's the definition of what shadow is. Oh, you can say it is the content of the personal unconscious. Yeah, it's a quite correct understanding of what shadow is. And also, you can draw, you can express the image of the shadow. It's not also very difficult things to do. You can draw the image of the devil, demon, or the evil spirits. So there are many painters and writers who could understand and describe the image of the shadow. But this song, Interlude Shadow, express not only the image of the shadow, but also the dialogue between ego and shadow, or I can say sugar and his shadow.
Yeah.
So that was most impressed me deeply. And the dialogue is a key concept of Jungian psychology, as far in my understanding, because the Jungian psychology is not about just finding the shadow or making unconscious into the conscious content. That's not all about Jungian psychology. We have Jung uses a particular phrase, very interesting phrase, which is objective psyche. It sounds quite strange, doesn't it? Because normally we understand the psyche as quite subjective things. So objective psyche sounds quite very strange and contradictory. But this word objective psyche means that we experience the like shadow, the animals, or even the self as the inner figure, as the other person, just like seeing the other person in our daily life. We see, meet, fight, discuss, and sometimes get closer to the inner figure. So that's the meaning of this objective psyche. We experience our own psyche as an object. So as an object, we can say something to him or her, and then he or she can say something to us. So that makes the dialogue.
That makes the dialogue.
Yeah. So I believe that's a central, essential part of Jungian understanding about our psyche. And this song, Interlude Shadow, expresses this dialogue between the ego and this inner figure of objective psyche. For example, as you said, it is a Korean lyric, so I'm not sure if I can translate it precisely, but I believe the sugar's shadow, tell him, hey, is this something that you wanted? You are the one who wanted to live like this, aren't you? Or you can't. No. Yeah, the shadow said something like this to him, and then the ego figure, the sugar, answered like this: I'm scared. Don't let me fly. Don't let me down. I'm scared. And then the dialogue continued, and at the very end of this their conversation, the shadow told him, "You are me, and I am you. We are one." So just a dialogue.
Yeah.
So this dialogue is the essence of Jungian psychology and Jungian psychotherapy. So that was the most amazing part of this song for me personally. Mm-hmm.
Very well said. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I would like to also mention that when we use the word shadow, most people think of the dark side, evil, the devil, but Dr. Stein points out that the shadow is also our unconscious narcissism, egotism, selfishness, envy, and Suga sings about all of those things in that song. So it's a brilliant song, Suga. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so this book, I feel like we're 45 minutes or so in, and I haven't even mentioned the book yet. And your work as a translator. So Chiron Publications published 4 books in their Map of the Soul series. And you mention in your, so you translated the 4th volume, which we'll get to, but in that 4th volume, in your Japanese translation, which is being released today, I've seen 2 different dates as the release date. On the publisher's website, it says May 24th, but then in other places, like on Amazon Japan, it's May 26th.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the fact is that the publisher has shipped the whole copies of this book today.
Okay.
24th May, and they will arrive at the bookstore or the Amazon site from 26th.
Okay.
So
Got it.
It's a bit complicated, yeah.
Okay. So I forgot where I was going with this, but there's this whole afterword that you wrote, that you added. So just for background for listeners who are not familiar, you mentioned that you were talking to Dr. Stein about Jung's Map of the Soul, his book, which was originally published in 1998.
Yeah.
He asked you, actually, do you think that book is a little difficult for the younger generation to understand? For Army, all the armies all over were buying this book because Jung's Map of the Soul has been translated into many, many languages. And he asked you if you thought maybe it was a little too difficult for the younger generation to understand. And so what did you say?
Yeah. I said, yes, maybe so. They
little bit.
Find it a little bit difficult
because it's a heavy book.
Yeah. I also told him that because that book is not just an introductory.
Right.
It has depth.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little bit too difficult for them to read it and understand it. And he just said, I see, all right, or something like that. But it seemed to me that he was thinking something very seriously.
The wheels were turning.
Yeah.
As we say.
Yeah, it was turning. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it got him thinking.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I wonder maybe that was the moment when Dr. Stein started thinking about publishing another book, especially for the armies.
For Army, yeah. So what happened was that Chiron Publications, Dr. Stein is the co-founder, along with Dr. Schwartz-Salant, the late Dr. Nathan Schwartz-Salant, who was a guest on this program, started Chiron Publications decades ago. And then it was acquired by Doctors Bucer and Cruz in Asheville, North Carolina. And so Chiron published, it started off with Map of the Soul Persona, a small paperback book. And there are, I'm just looking here at the table of contents, there are 13 chapters, and it, is that true? Yeah. And it includes some of the dialogue that Dr. Stein and I had in the episode about that. And then they followed it up, with Map of the Soul Shadow, and then Map of the Soul Ego. So that's 3 books. And then they decided to come out with an all-encompassing volume, which is the 4th volume, which is the one you translated. It's titled Map of the Soul 7, Persona, Shadow, and Ego in the World of BTS. And I was asked if it included everything that was in the first 3 volumes. It doesn't include everything, but it does include sections on persona, shadow, and ego. There's also, actually, the first chapter is BTS and the number 7, because we didn't know if they were going to release an album just about ego, just about shadow. Instead, they did Map of the Soul 7. And so it reviews the main points in each of the first 3 volumes. Okay. And then there is the last chapter, chapter 12, is concluding thoughts written by psychiatrist Dr. Leonard Cruz on music being the universal language. Okay. So with all of that background, I'd love for you to tell us how you came to translate that book into Japanese.
Yeah, I see. And well, actually, it was the publisher who found me and asked me to be the translator of this book, because the editor of that Sougensha knows, she noticed that that Japanese student could be me.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So that's the reason why she asked me, and she asked the very same question as you. She asked me, "Are you this Japanese student?" I say yes, and She also said, "Are you interested in translating this book?" And I say yes, because I had already read this book and I found it very interesting, and it is not just the present only for the armies, but it is also interesting as an introductory book for Jungian psychology itself.
That's a good point.
Well, I like this book, especially it emphasized the role or the importance of the ego. There are many books written about the shadow of the persona.
Right.
But there are very little book which focused on the theme of ego. So this book writes many things about ego, what the ego means, and the role of ego. So I believe that's the beauty of this book. So that's another reason why I decided to be the translator of this book.
And just I'd like to make the point that, as Dr. Stein mentioned in our episodes together, Jung's concept of the ego, and that term ego means I, I, not an inflated ego. So this is the Jungian term ego. So you were approached to translate this book because you are also a professional book translator. And I would like for you to tell us about that, because you've translated some really big, heavy books. 3 of Jung's and Otto Rank and Ferentz's. So how did that come to be?
Well, Well, actually, it started as just a personal interest. Maybe I can say hobby.
A hobby? Okay.
Yeah, I just love to translate a foreign
Mm.
language into Japanese. And before I became a professional translator, I used to love translate unpublished, untranslated text into Japanese
Oh.
for my personal purpose.
Now, translate from which language into Japanese?
Well, German and also the English.
So you know German well enough to... Wow. Where did
Well,
you learn German?
yeah, at university,
Mm.
and also I have to say that to study Jungian psychology, we need to learn something about German.
Yeah.
Because he's, of course, he wrote mainly in his own mother tongue, German.
Jung
language.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the terms Jung used in German can't be translated into foreign language. For example, one of the most important terms of Jungian psychology is German die Seele. Die Seele is almost impossible to translate into other language. Yes, it's similar to soul in English, and we have a similar translation in Japan. But soul, English soul, and the German die Seele is not exactly the same concept.
Would you spell that word?
Seele?
Yeah.
S-E-E-L-E. Die Seele.
And it loosely translates to soul, something like soul.
Yes, it's very close to soul.
So you translated some of Jung's books, and how long does it take for you to translate a book, say Dream Analysis? How long did that take?
Long. Well, about the books about Dream Analysis is a Japanese original edited book.
Okay.
As I picked up 7 papers on dream psychology or the dream analysis from Jung's collected work in German Gesammelt Werke, and translated and put it into one single book.
Okay, so you created that book. That's not his 2-volume set, Dream Analysis.
Yes, exactly. And well, actually, there are several papers, 2 or 3 papers of that book. Well, I had already translated it when I was a college student, I believe.
Okay.
Of course, it was a rough translation, which can't be published. And I translated it again and again throughout my professional career. So there are 2 ways to answer your question. Yeah, it takes almost 1 year, probably. Yeah, to finish the whole process, not just translating, but also the proofreading work requires some time. But also, I can say it required more than 15 or 16 years to complete the whole works. So,
15 or 16 years for to complete.
To complete the whole the translation work, especially about this book.
I'm sorry, which book are we talking about?
Yeah, the Japanese original edition.
Okay, of Dream Analysis.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then this book, how long did it take you to translate Map of the Soul 7?
Well, actually, it didn't take so much. I believe it 3 or 4 months.
And you translated it from the English?
Yes.
Yeah. It's 191, no, about 200 pages. It took you a few months. And and I would like to talk a little bit more about what you wrote in the translators afterward, not to give too much away, but it's so good that I would love for you to tell the listeners some of the points that you make about, I mean, circling back to when you found out that BTS was, I mean, selling Dr. Stein's book. So we really don't know the full story. Did all the members read the book? Did some of the writers read the book? How were they influenced by Dr. Stein's book? We don't know. But you mentioned that it's commonplace, really, for musicians and artists to draw inspiration from books. But in many cases, it just doesn't translate. They'll pick out a word, and it fails to, the artist kind of fails to embody the essence of it. So tell us how that you see that that's not the case with BTS, that they really did embody these themes.
Well, that's another big
I mean, I know that you gave us that example of Interlude Shadow, but you make such great points in this afterword that that I was really moved when I read this. Well, BTS moves me. I'm very touched by them. I've seen them in concert. I saw them here in Chicago. I went to 2 shows in Los Angeles last year, and then 2 shows in Las Vegas this year. And I just get more and more impressed by them and fall deeper and deeper in love with them. Also, I went back and watched all of their docuseries, and this theme of some Jungian theory was with them, it seems, from the beginning. And a lot of ARMY pointed that out to me, but I just hadn't done the research, and now I can see it. So what did you say about how BTS being inspired by this is different from other artists? And you mentioned how lots of people, what did you say here, that there are countless artworks around the world that claim to be inspired by Jungian psychology. But if you ask me to pick up something that can compare to Map of the Soul Persona and Map of the Soul 7.
Now I see what I can say. And the songs of BTS can convey the meaning of those concepts, not only the intellectual understanding, but also the emotional understanding of what persona is, or what the shadow is, or what the ego means to us. For example, the very first number of that album, intro, persona. We can understand how the persona means for him earlier. He's a superstar, so he has a very attractive persona, and he is also struggling with it. We can imagine it. But this song can convey its emotional understanding, so that we can also feel it in our own way. We have our own persona. Our persona is different from the one of RM, of course, but we have persona, and we need to make it stronger or attractive, or and sometimes we have to struggle with the identification with that persona to make a distance between particular persona and ourselves. So the theme that RM is expressing in that beautiful song is not just about him. It's also about us too.
Right.
So that's the beauty of the song and also the other songs of BTS. So I believe that's the differences between the BTS and the other products.
And Dr. Stein goes over each song in these books and is working with the translated lyrics. And so you make a great point that it's not just them using a word, one of Jung's terms for the title of the album, but they really embrace the theme, the theory, I should say, of what that word means and how they're living it, how it applies to them. And the thing that I love about them is that they share so much of their lives with us, not just their outer lives, but their inner lives too. And that's why they touch me so deeply, is because they share their struggles and their pain and their doubt and their issues. And you can see that in these docuseries, and I will have links to all of them in the show notes for this episode. And that's why I connect with them so deeply. So I was wondering if there's anything else that you would like to tell us. I know I've done a lot of talking.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to share with us
before we
wrap up?
Well, Laura, may I read the translation of the final thought of the Japanese afterward, translators afterward?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, it is just a rough translation, but I believe it can convey the spirit. And I said, needless to say, BTS, Map of the Soul, Persona, and Map of the Soul 7 are the completed artworks in themselves. You can understand how wonderful they are without reading this book. I mean, Map of the Soul 7 book. However, if you study this book, you will realize that what the BTS is expressing in Map of the Soul Persona and Map of the Soul 7 are also meaningful in your own life too. And it will help you to love the music and videos of BTS even more deeply than before. This book is a sincere gift from Jungian psychology to BTS and the Precious Army. I do hope you enjoy this series book.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So as we wrap up, I would just like to mention that you are also translating another book of Dr. Stein's. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's a more technical or specialized book, which is called Outside, Inside, and All Around. I believe it is Dr. Mary Stein's latest corrected works. And this book's focused on many important Jungian concepts like synchronicity, transformation, or individuation. So it's this book is more specialized book, and it will be published in. Yeah, I have already finished translating it, and actually I am in the middle of a proofreading work.
Okay.
The final checking process, and it will be published in July, I believe. So
in July by the same publisher?
No, another publisher. It's called Misuzu Shobo.
Yes, and that is who published in Japan the other books you translated that I mentioned earlier, the books by Jung.
Yeah, that's it.
And Otto Rank and France. So I also mentioned that your training as a Jungian analyst is expected to be completed next year. And are you writing a thesis?
Yes, actually, yes, I'm struggling with it.
You're struggling. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Would you tell us what it's about?
Well, Unlike the other, institute in, Switzerland or United States, I believe, in Japan, we need to write several theses, not only the book one thesis, but the several theses.
You need to write several theses?
Yes. And on one paper, I will write the archetype of wounded healer, which is a very important concept of Jungian psychology. And the other one, I will write about the Japanese culture of tea ceremony. Do you know something about it? Tea ceremony.
No, I don't.
We have a ceremony, especially for just drinking tea.
Okay. And you're looking at that from a psychological perspective.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you are practicing there in Kobe, and you are available. You have openings for clients if anybody would like to get in touch with you. You do have a beautiful website. I will provide a link to that in the show notes for this episode. Yes, and we will keep in touch, definitely. And I was just looking to see if there's anything that I left out, anything else that you would like to mention about BTS or this book as we close.
Well, before we end, may I say something in Japanese?
Yes, please. I was hoping you would.
Yes. 日本の皆さん、どうもこんばんは。楽しんでいただけたら嬉しいです。後で相談しようと思ってるんですけど、これ、全部英語でお話をしましたので、伝わりにくい部分もたくさんあったかと思います。何らかの形で、日本語で今日、ローラさんとお話ししたことを日本の皆さんにも紹介できるように、後で相談してみたいと思いますので、ぜひそれも楽しみにしていただけたらと思います。本当にありがとうございました。Okay, Laura.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And all of the books, your books, I usually link to Amazon, but I'm not an Amazon Japan affiliate. And I would love for people to be able to purchase your books. So I will provide link to the publisher. Anything that you give me, I will add to the show notes so that people can purchase your books, your Japanese translations. And so I would like to provide links to those. And so look for this. This is episode 110. Listeners, please look for this episode page on speakingofyoung.com. And we will provide links to everything that we discussed here today. So with that, I would like to thank Dr. Murray Stein, Dr. Stephen Buser, and Jennifer Fitzgerald at Chiron Publications, Liz Jefferson, Carla Postma-Slabicorn, Tiffany Helton, and Dr. Melissa Werner. I'd also like to thank BTS and their entire staff and the entire BTS army. I love you guys. I'm Laura London, and you've been watching a very special video edition of Speaking of Jung.